Well, there you are now. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Transfer Podcast for Anfield Index Pro. I'm Trev Downey. That's Dave Davis. And we are here to talk to you about the latest comings and goings in all the clubs around England, Europe, but specifically, of course, our main interest is Liverpool. That's where we'll start, Dave. There are a lot of stories. There's a lot of need, if we're going by the weekend, for the Reds to get things done. And it's a bit silly if we don't start with some of the big ones. And I know the first story you've got here is around centre backs. We can actually do this one with a little bit of a smile on our face because we at least have one in the door, a very impressive looking young fella by the name of Leoni. You can walk us through the details of that. We saw the meeting with Arne and all that kind of stuff. And the Mark Guéhi story rumbles on as well. However, you've got an interesting thing here in terms of some disgruntlement with Glasner and stuff like that. So let's start there with the centre backs situation, because at least we, like I say, something positive to say in this story.
Yeah, we got one in. They love a Friday, don't they? Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards. So Friday it was announced, wasn't it, before the game? Giovanni Leoni from Parma, 26 million quid, plus Parma got a 10% sell on. So good business all round. Liverpool see it. They feel they've really got a coup. We know they've been looking for this young centre back for some time, haven't they? Dean Huijsen, Lenny York. They've been looking for someone who really fits the profile. And I mean, you've seen the photos and the footage. This kid's a monster, isn't he? At 18, he's already taller than Alisson, same height as Van Dijk. We've seen the videos of him bodying Lukaku, ragdolling Vlahovic. There's so much to like about this kid that you feel like when he thought, Italians in the Premier League, like, nah, this kid may just have it. So he is young, he is inexperienced, he has got minimal minutes, but let's be positive about this one. The potential, the threshold looks really high. So one centre-back in the door. You're now thinking the second one because Mark Guéhi, Crystal Palace, as you mentioned. And for those that watched the game yesterday, they had a bit of a spat at full time, didn't they? Glasner and Guéhi. Guéhi was sort of applauding the Palace fans and then went off, and Glasner tried to call him over. Not quite that awkward Steve McLaren, like one of them jobs, but tried to get him over, and he didn't. He just kind of went straight down it. It was a focus on Sky, wasn't it? And even Mateta turning around going, what's up with him? Type of thing. And today, quite a few different reports, and I've got one here from Sammy Motbull, who's the BBC chief football correspondent, who's very well connected at Palace. It's important to say. He's talking about that situation. And the way it's billed, you may be able to see it on screen, people. It just feels, Trev, like that Mexican standoff still. That Liverpool want Guéhi now, but won't overpay beyond a certain amount. Steve Parish wants to sell Mark Guéhi now. He's been quite clear about that, but they are good negotiators. They want a minimum fee for it. Mark Guéhi has the option of, obviously wants to go to Anfield, but at worst case, he stays captain of a club the World Cup year, doesn't he? And plays regular football either way. So it just all feels a bit of a standoff. This one is important to mention, though, that line there. We said, didn't we, about the fee? Liverpool and Palace have held discussions about a possible 35 million deal for Guéhi to go before the transfer deadline. Maybe on my own here, I think that's great value, Trev. I really do. As soon as you sign Guéhi, he's worth double that in the current market, isn't he, really, with the dearth of centre-halves as well. And I think we've said, if it was 40 million, like if it was us, you'd just do it now, wouldn't you, to get him in, especially after someone got hold of the Sky remote that controls Ibu Konate on Friday night and just pressed the rewind button. So he was going backwards like that for 5 minutes, wasn't he, type of thing. So there's that in the mix. And speaking of Konate, there's been various reports, hasn't there, about contract and negotiations. Liverpool have started it up, tried it up again. Got to be honest on this completely. The info that we've got is, no, it's not going the best, shall we say, those contract negotiations. And from what we're hearing, I want to be wrong on this, desperately do, and I'd love to get it completely wrong. But from what we're hearing, not good news on that at the moment. And Liverpool have made subsequent offers to the player, but yeah, it's telling that we're about to start the season. There's no renewal agreed. Hopes on that, I wouldn't say they're extinguished, but I wouldn't put them too high either.
I want to come back to the question of what you think we do here. But just to acknowledge something that's happening in the chats there, we've got Jan, Mr. Wah, P35, 374, all saying that they've got buffering issues. And apparently that is a YouTube issue, according to James and the Turtle Project there. And also Prakash is talking about buffering as well. So if you have an alternative way to watch the show now live, apart from YouTube, those ways would be where do most people watch us if they don't watch on YouTube?
We are still beaming out to Facebook and Twitter, X, whatever you call it as well. So both that way. But yeah, it's interesting. I think if you mentioned there, it might be a mix. Mine's been fine all day and it shows we're at full strength. So there is alternatives if you are stuck at all with YouTube.
Yeah. Again, just wanted to acknowledge it. Then it's not our end here. It's at YouTube's site, unfortunately. The centre half issue, to get back into that for the people who are with us. It's interesting, Dave. I feel like it's such a massive issue. You referred to the almost comical moment with Ibu when we conceded that goal. He was loosey-goosey all the way through the first half, if we're being perfectly honest. It would be really easy to understand if his head was a bit turned. That would at least explain why he was so sort of comically inept at times. We know how good this lad is. You know, you and I are desperate for him to sign a contract because there's probably nobody better that we could get to play alongside Virgil van Dijk than Ibu Konate. So that is an issue. The Mark Guéhi thing will rumble, it seems, and I'm a bit like with the Isak thing. I'm sick to the back teeth of it. It's a matter of just do it, please. We don't have the excuse that Newcastle's ineptitude are stopping us from doing the business to get Mark Guéhi done. And the only thing that makes me have any sort of pause for breath here is, well, at least Joe Gomez was back, but for how long? So I'm looking at the Guéhi thing. I think it's great we get Leoni in. It doesn't look like he's going to go on a loan. It looks like he's going to stay around and train and learn, and that's great. And maybe he will be a prodigy that we can introduce into the team in a sort of meaningful way over the season, or maybe he won't. So we do need that extra senior centre half. Is there any other name doing the rounds apart from Mark Guéhi? Because that's where my worry comes into it. Now, we know we're very good at having alternative targets that we can pivot to at the club. Do you have any idea who they might be?
No, to be honest, as well, a bit like almost a striker situation. They seem to be disappearing a little bit, doesn't it? It looks like Brighton are set on keeping Van Hecke, even running him down for the year and going from there. Cody De Winter is at AC Milan now, isn't he? At the same time as well. Jacquet, another player that we talked about. That's actually, funnily enough, mentioning that alternative target for us, Palace have been linked with him, funnily enough, as a Guéhi replacement as well. So all the names that you hear, and people will be shouting, or someone will say, Nathan Collins. But we've mentioned that earlier in the summer that Brentford have got no intention of letting him go, even though he was absolute murder yesterday. And, it would take a silly offer that Liverpool would not pay. They're clearly trying to do a deal with Crystal Palace, as reported there. So it does feel like Guéhi or no one a little bit at the moment.
And the Konate contract thing, again, this is the kind of news that you have been hearing all the way through this summer and from before, really, from the very first show. Because once those big three got done, the next, all eyes were on Ibu Konate. And from the start, we were hearing negative rumbles about the fact that, he wasn't accepting offers. This is interesting here that you have this update for us that we have actually increased our offer to him. Can we confirm that it has been rejected?
Yeah, that's my info, that Liverpool has spoke to him. Arne Slot, is, I don't know how you put it almost. The way it was described to me is he well in with the player? Like, there's a mutual respect between the two ever since Slot came in. Slot's entrusting him with more responsibility. I know it doesn't quite look right based on Friday night, but we could only tell you what we're hearing there as well. I think the big worry is just still, well, the two big worries are the spectre of Real Madrid and, his local club in PSG, aren't they? They would love to take him on a free. They can when he comes on a free offer, far, far bigger than we can or we're prepared to. So, yeah, I want to be wrong so badly, but if you ask me to put money on it, I don't think he's going to be a Liverpool player next season.
Yeah, I think people are just worried that it might happen sooner than that. And then what sort of a situation are we in? That's, I think, what is genuinely concerning a few people. Let's go to the Alexander Isak story because we can't not go to it. At this stage, I think you're probably like me. I've had it to the back teeth with this, mostly because of the way the narrative is being spun in the media. This incredibly biased one-way Liverpool bad nonsense that we're hearing. It's quite pathetic. It's obviously being done on purpose. Anyone with a modicum of intelligence can see what the situation is. They can see the absolutely glaring hypocrisy of the pundits who are talking about it, of the Newcastle fans who are talking about it and deriding Liverpool and Liverpool's actions here. I'm not saying that our club has been saintly here. I'm not saying that Alexander Isak's actions are laudable, but this idea, Dave, of just pay the money, and because Henry Winter says we should just pay the money, that we should just pay the money. It's absolutely farcical. No deal works like that. And I think people who have, like I say, just a little bit of common sense have probably done like I have done with this and filed it as, that's in the back of my head now. I can't engage with this because it's so fucking stupid on its face. The discussion about it is so infantile and pathetic that it's very, very difficult to engage with it in an honest way with people because people aren't being honest with you. There have been developments. Yeah. We heard that we were expecting that there was going to be booing towards Isak. We expected that there was going to be a sort of hardening from Eddie Howe towards him in his attitude as the clock ticks down towards the end. This is all going to be dependent, and it always was going to be on Newcastle actually getting their fingers out of wherever it's lodged and getting on with doing some business for themselves, which they've been absolutely appalling at doing. Where are we with their business, with the attitude towards Isak from the higher-ups and from the fans, and in terms of the reality or not of this deal actually getting over the line in the next fortnight?
Yeah, well, a great few questions there. And I mean, back to the weekend, as you said, I think we all heard the booing, the chanting at the end, and people thinking, yeah, this is inevitable now. What's going to happen? Like many have said before. Eddie Howe, even his words there, we'd like a resolution. We need that clarity. I've made my stance pretty clear that in a case of, that Eddie Howe wants players that want to play for Newcastle, as he said, and like you, but honestly, the whole nonsense around Eddie Howe's done a great job. We've been through that thing so many times, but yeah, it is just playing into all the tribalism and different bits. I think the big thing that we're all waiting for is, can Newcastle sign a striker? And now that Otara had gone to Brentford, it was like, Visser, yes, Newcastle will finally do something. And then Brentford came to the party, didn't they? And thought, we can play a little bit on this. And to be fair to them, did the whole like, oh, sorry, did we say it was like 40? No, it's now 60. Sorry, we misspoke first time, and played Newcastle like an absolute fiddle. Visser's responded with this, actually, and deleted all reference of the Brentford from, his social media, all those bits as well. So it's quite funny the way that's happened. But yeah, it just, I think for the first time, it's not panic stations. We're not going, it's all collapsing, anything like that at all, Trev. But this is just one where all of a sudden you're thinking, how late will Liverpool leave this? When will Liverpool aren't a yellow tie type of club, as we said before, and do deadline day? They want business done nice and quickly. But they are at the whimsical mercies, shall we say, of Newcastle and their just absolute shambolic organisation. So it all just feeds into the mix a little bit. And again, speaking to people today about it, saying, yeah, absolutely, fully expect it to happen. But when? How late do Liverpool leave it? It definitely isn't panic stations or anything like that right now. But yeah, it is just, I do wonder myself, when do we start to cut a deadline on this, if there is any at all?
Yeah. Okay, let's just tease this out a little bit because, and by the way, again, apologies if you are having this buffering issue. It's nothing we can have any control over. It seems to be a YouTube issue, so we can only give you the advice we gave 5 minutes ago. I'm not going to do it any more than this, but just for the benefit of people who came in late, if you can access us via X or Facebook or wherever else that we stream live to, please do that instead of missing the show. Alternatively, you can always watch on the replay. Just in terms of just boxing off this one, because Guéhi and Isak are the two that just won't go away, and they're the two that we clearly have interest in both, and they would clearly be kind of, like we've said, that phrase that I keep using, plug and play, good to go, would improve our squad no end, and all the rest of it. It's the plan Bs that I'm considering here in my head, because you know the thing that's happened before, Dave, where we've gone into a season having chased player X. Usually that player X was a sort of defensively minded midfielder, the Adam Wharton type or the playmaker type that we were having a look at, like Zubimendi or like any of the various other ones like Caicedo that we spent summers chasing. And when we can't get them, we just go into the season. Do you feel it's like that? Because I think this is very different. I think we have a dearth of attacking options that needs to be addressed. So there should be a plan B there. I think we have a clear dearth of defensive options that needs to be addressed. So there should be a plan B. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, and everything. I mean, how long have we said for, leading up to the summer when we were doing these and into the summer, that all the info we've had is the groundwork has been, unprecedented in terms of the analysts, the scouting, speaking to agents, players, that they're looking across the board at so many options. So that would naturally lead you to think that, and as we said before, they had their number one targets in certain positions, but if they couldn't get those, they would look at alternatives and work down that way. So you'd have to think there would be those alternatives. Of course there would. And people will think, what about Barcola at PSG? But he played yesterday, didn't he? Started for them. So, the contract, I'm not sure about that. People, we've talked about the other centre half. So it is interesting that alternatives seem to be sort of falling by the wayside a little bit as we talk. But people always tell us, don't they, have faith in the people in charge at the moment, the suits, the laptops, etc., however you want to phrase it. So we can do that. But I am intrigued. I almost hope, and I mean this sincerely, obviously everything works out the way we want, that they don't have to pull a rabbit out the hat. We'll go to like a desperate or a half-baked, stopgap measure, because it would be a bit of a sad finish to the end of the window, having started so strongly, wouldn't it? So we will have to see. But yeah, I can't be telling you that there's 8,000 alternative options just waiting in the wings, to be honest.
Yeah, I suppose I was hoping against hope that you might have some little story up your sleeve that, well, if not X, then Y. But like you, I haven't come across any of those. And I refuse to believe that this is going to be like the midfield situation. I feel this is something that must be addressed. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Now, what we can talk about in a positive way is that we continue to do business very well in terms of getting rid of lads. That's for sure. The Ben Doak story is the big one of the week in terms of sales. I heard some. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the Ben Doak sums are as follows. I think it was 600,000 to sign him. We've had him for 3 years off on various loans. He's played like a handful of minutes. Is it even 100 for the first team? And we have somehow managed to get 25 million of your English pounds for Ben Doak, with all sorts of clauses written in there as well. That's wild. There's also the high likelihood, because it looks like Andy Robbo is going to be the one that stays around, having seen his move to Atletico Madrid fall through. It looks like he's going to be the preferred option. So it's likely that Tsimikas will go. Interesting to see what kind of a fee we get for him. And Lucas Stevenson is also on the move. So talk to us about the people on the way out, but do start with the Doak story, because that's very interesting.
Yeah, it might even get announced while we're on the show. He's done all his, holding the shirt, all the different bits. And interesting, we always say Ben Doak, don't we? And of course, that's what we did. When you see his Bournemouth signing, he'll be Gannon Doak, because his full name is Ben Gannon Doak. So I don't know, because he's moved down south, if he's going to become double-barrelled or what that is. But on his shirt was Gannon Doak. So just in case you see that and everyone's thinking, what is that about? There you go. But I mean, Trev, 25 million for a lad who's played minimal minutes in the Premier League is absolutely great business. And a buyback clause is in there at the same time as well. So if he does skyrocket, as is always possible, it's in there. And I've seen a few people say, that's great. It's so important we had that in there. I get what they're saying, but our references, Liverpool include that standard as almost insurance, but don't expect to activate it. That, just where everyone gets excited, this kid's, but it is covered. That's the most important thing. Lucas Stevenson, he's gone straight back on loan to Dundee United. You don't want to sound harsh on the kid because he did well pre-season, but it's mainly as no one was meeting the fee Liverpool were looking for. So another year out on loan, see what happens. But I like Lucas Stevenson, but there's no real long-term future that way as well. Also, Tsimikas is a weird one because after the Community Shield, Paul Joyce tweeted, didn't he, that Nottingham Forest were interested in him and Liverpool would only consider permanent exits. That was crucial. But then Fabrizio Romano tweeted quite late last night saying, Liverpool could even look at loans. So the two don't really marry there. It'll be interesting to see. But our information is that, there are absolutely clubs looking at Kostas Tsimikas and he's fully expected to move on. Then there's going to be a raft of empty the creche a little bit as well. Probably like extended contract for those that need it, like McConnell. Dan has been mentioned, but it will just be a case of clear the decks. Bajcetic as well, as we mentioned before, he might well go late depending on his fitness and what offers they get. But it makes sense, doesn't it? I know people will talk about squad shortages, but those players are nowhere really near first team action. So it just makes sense. Asset protection with the renewal. Off they go on loan. There's plenty of exits, and there's one we've not even talked about yet.
Yeah, just before we move on, Daryl, is Isak not happening yet? I'm confused. Dude, join the club. We all are. We just know what we've told you. And until it happens, he hasn't joined. So it's as simple as that.
Daryl, it's like the Michael Corleone scene in Godfather 3.
Here we go.
Still absolutely just like, someone, please.
Michael on the steps. Also, Adam Patricione there was asking about news on Dans and Kumas. You did briefly refer to Jayden Dans there, as in it'll be likely, you were saying that he'll probably be sent on loan somewhere. Is the same true of young Kumas?
The last I heard about Lewis Kumas was that, again, because he'd had a decent-ish loan at Stoke, it was championship clubs again that Sheffield United had inquired about him. And also Wrexham had also, because they seem to like buying young Welsh players as well. So where he ends up, I don't know. But again, I think it is just important people adjust their lenses, because maybe Jurgen Klopp era, there was that famous photo, wasn't there, at Wembley with all the young kids and look at this next generation and all this. Don't want to sound harsh, but everything's moved up a level for them, hasn't it? It's got tougher and tougher, which is great for us. But Arne Slot will not mess around. He either thinks these kids have got it, i.e. Leoni and Gamoa, or he doesn't. And if he doesn't, they won't be working with his first team squad. He wants to focus on the players that he thinks do have it. so to speak. So, yeah, another one, Lewis Kumas, that we're told expected to move on. And you never know for definite because, they're young and things can change. But would I say Lewis Kumas has got a great chance of being a Liverpool first teamer? Doesn't mean he's a bad player at all, just to be clear, Trev, but it doesn't really stack up at the moment.
Yeah, and listen, all the best to young Gannon Doak.
Yeah.
We'll be watching him with immense curiosity. But as long as we're doing business like that, it's almost magic. It's almost like black magic. Some of the deals that have been done at this club by this crew over the years, we've really, it feels like we're pulling pants down, I'll be honest with you, left, right, and centre. And I'm not deriding Ben Doak as a talent, but I'm just saying, look at your sample size. It's remarkable business. It really is, and it hopefully will help us get somebody in the door, which we're talking about now. One of the people who we thought we'd be talking about leaving, like Tsimikas, is the hero of the hour at the moment. Just by the way, sorry, dude, I have to go back to this. Tsimikas, alone for Costas Tsimikas at whatever age he is, 43. Who would do that? Why would he want to do that? That makes no sense.
It literally doesn't make any sense at all. And to be honest, I saw someone said the other day, it does make sense because when Robbo goes in a year, he'll come back. Well, Arne Slot's looking at an aging Robbo in his last year and still thinking Kostas Tsimikas is below him in the pecking order. That tells you everything you need to know about how regarded he is. I think the only way it's a loan for Tsimikas is if we fail or we've overpriced him in the market.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. I just wanted to go there. But anyway, turn our attention to something that's a bit more upbeat, which is Federico Chiesa. We saw his absolutely stunning goal. I tweeted it out there. I found someone who had set it to Pavarotti's Nessun Dorma. Magical. Absolutely magical. I could watch it all night. But if Chiesa turns out to be the lad, and I would love to see that happen. I think everybody would. He just seems to be such a good lad. People very fond of him, and we all know the pedigree of the player. It seems to have turned around there, but you just mentioned it. Arne Slot's opinion is Arne Slot's opinion, and he is slow to change it. So Chiesa has come in on occasions before and done impressive things, and hasn't made a blind bit of difference. So talk to me about why this is different now, why you think, if you do, that he's likely to hang around. Is it simply because the Isak thing is dragging on and whatever plan we had for an alternative guy is very much still in the makings? And do you still think there is a universe, because I do, where Federico Chiesa might go?
I never thought I'd say this, but I've watched the replay of his goals. Like you said, Nessun Dorma was brilliant. The Titanic one, that's brilliant.
Yeah, great.
However, my favourite was the Luther Vandross "I'm Gonna Set You Up" remix. As Federico Chiesa volleys it. There's been some absolutely brilliant ones to this. That was my favourite one. But yeah, I'm sure, like everyone, we've watched this goal 80,000 times, and it was intriguing after the match. I mean, it was on the screen. It's on the screen there, the quote: "I'm very happy at Liverpool. I will speak to the club, but I want to stay here and fight to win many trophies." And Romano said it on his YouTube channel about the plan has changed for Chiesa. He does want to stay at fight. Yes, earlier in the window that he was looking at options to Italy, but this is what he's determined to do. And it's just important to mention that Fabrizio is well in with Fali, as we've been told. Fali Ramandi, I think it's pronounced, Chiesa's agent. So, there's a first-hand line there as well. It's important to say. Even Arne Slot was quite praising, wasn't he, of Chiesa afterwards as well, and saying, one for the fans, he's like, and he's here at the moment. And you do just start to wonder, with the circumstances and everything that's unfolded, and the fact we are thin on the ground in the attacking lineup, it showed on the bench, didn't it? Whether it almost has changed the whole way of thinking, whether it's with Chiesa, Slot, and whether they now look at him as almost a super sub, shall we say. That's on the table a little bit, isn't it? Who could play minutes in certain games as well, that Chiesa might just be an option. Now, there is a little bit that's important there as well, where it says, I will speak to the club. So doing a bit of digging on this, and this is important to say, the club have still been looking at alternatives, as in attacking winger-style options who are versatile forwards, as it's also been called, as well as Isak. Does that mean they will progress on them? Absolutely not. But Liverpool have just been looking at that or those options, it's probably right to say. Again, David Lynch was on Media Matters, and he, to be fair, was quite honest and said from his information and that, coming from the club sources, they are pouring score on it. But it's so important to say about that score. Liverpool are bound to pour that on it because they don't want it coming out. If it falls through, and they can't do it quite late in the window. It's easy just to have the line like, no, we told you it was Isak and no one, and then everything's sorted that way. It's so late in the window to get a quality winger through the door now, Trev, is difficult, isn't it? Let's be honest. And a lot of teams have made their moves, looking at prize assets. So it's just, I am really fascinated by this one. We can't lie. And all the talk was at the start of the window, this was the Thanos, the inevitable move, wasn't it? Chiesa's going back. We've had Atalanta, Napoli, all those in the mix. Now, whether Fally just hasn't been able to do a deal, and a lot of it has come down to the wages he's on at Liverpool just aren't compatible with Serie A, are they? And there's talk of Liverpool would have to fund it and all that. And I just wonder, with all these circumstances in the hopper, whether Liverpool, Hughes, Edwards, Slot, and everyone have just gone, is it actually worth it? Is it not better just keeping him as an option from the bench and having him there? Because he seems hungry. He seems to want to stay at the same time. And in his defence, he isn't any mug, is he? It was a great controlled finish the other night as well. He does have ability to make things happen. It's not the biggest headline of the summer, but it's got the potential to be the biggest surprise, hasn't it? A full Federico Chiesa turnaround and being a part of Liverpool's squad next season. Or this season, sorry.
I would love it, Dave. I maybe that's sentimental of me, but I would love that.
Yeah.
I'd love it for him. I'd love it for us. I just have this very practical side to me that says if Arne doesn't fancy you, you will struggle to get the minutes. But let's see how that one develops. What's really interesting there, and you kind of touched on it, Dave, about the wages with the Italian clubs. It's like, isn't it, that we're playing a different game to everybody bar the petro-funded super clubs and the petro states, in other words, the Saudi League. It's like the Premier League, we're playing a different game, financially speaking. You can talk all you like about the various merits of the league compared to other top leagues. I think it does stand out as well at the top in that respect too. But it does actually make things like this a little bit difficult because people are really struggling to make a deal work to get a player like Federico Chiesa to Italy. We saw it with some of the Spanish clubs as well. Like the reason Atletico balked at Robbo, unless I'm wrong here, was it was too rich a deal at the minimal amount that we would have been asking for them. They found someone cheaper. It does complicate everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to remember this. There's always these sliding door moments in football, the way things work. If we'd agreed to let Robbo go on a free, he'd be an Atletico Madrid player now. If we'd waived that sort of fee, or even probably if we'd really reduced it down as could have been possible, but we didn't, so he isn't. But it's important to consider that. There's another English player we're going to mention later on in the European section who's, moves just keep getting killed because he won't give up his wages that he's on at a Premier League club as well. Chiesa in this. Yeah, I think it's also a reason why a lot of Premier League clubs look to the overseas market, don't they, as well? Because players who are on lesser wages, and even with a wage bump, it still fits well within their structure at the same time. So, yeah, Premier League wages, Premier League fees, we've seen it this summer. The yardstick just goes up and up. And a lot of the European leagues bar obviously the exceptional, like you say, big boys or the uber-funded sides, they're the only ones that seem to be able to compete.
Yeah, whereas it's an advantage when it comes to swinging your wad of cash around.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can see that there's a flip side to it as well. Interesting to see what happens with Federico Chiesa. He's so well loved that I think nobody will be too upset if he continues. I would just tell people to be a little bit cautious because you don't know whether or not he will get the opportunities.
It's important
Let's go
to
to
say on that. Sorry, you're right. Sorry to cut you off there, but literally opportunities are there. But don't get it twisted. If Liverpool can get a winger target they want, bye Fede. Just to be clear, if they could get Isak and a winger target they want, as much as we adore him, and there's a real likability, what would happen.
Yeah, I think that might be the case. All right, buddy. Let's go to the Premier League in general now and talk about what's happening. We saw City make a comparatively impressive start. Lots of new boys in the team. And we don't know whether they are completely dead in terms of their business yet or not. But this Donnarumma thing won't go away. That's an interesting one. And we know that Ederson didn't start for them at the weekend, and it looks like he is on his way out of the club. Yeah. And they are still trying to offload, I think, Savinho as well. So talk to us about City, the business that still remains for them to do.
It's interesting, and there's almost an interconnectivity between us and City this summer, isn't there, in terms of targets, Pep Linders, all sort of the overlapping storylines that have been there. And the place to start is actually Rodrigo, because it's important to say that his agent, we mentioned him before, Pini Zahavi, he'd had the initial chats with Liverpool, and what they were asking for in terms of wages and the package was miles above what Liverpool were prepared to offer. However, this is important to say, the info we've got is that Zahavi was at Anfield on Friday night as well. So that obviously set a few questions there. Could they be back in? But it's also important to say that he was meeting with Hugo Viana, who is the sporting director at City, i.e., could he do a deal for his boy Rodrigo? Now it looks, Trev, like even City might have said that's too rich for my blood, because earlier today, Guillaume Balaguer tweeted that City have decided Savinho is to stay. This is Savinho that Pep dropped from the squad, said he was injured, and then Savinho put a social media post on of him tweeting, which, everyone knew what was going on around the Tottenham bid. But as it says there, that kills any possibility of Rodrigo joining City. So, I mean, people will say, could we still be in the mix? It was interesting that Zahavi was in the box on Friday, but I think he would have to literally take a butter knife to his wage demands to make it, foreseeable for us. So I'm not putting too much confidence in that at the same time. It will be interesting to see. This one's interesting as well. Ederson, Galatasaray have made an offer. They're still in negotiations there. City want Donnarumma, who PSG have said, we're, go as type of thing because you're messing with your wages and we want a new keeper. The one thing that's interesting, though, that managed to get, there's a real split at City on Donnarumma for a couple of reasons. Number one, they've just signed that young James Trafford back, haven't they, for 40 million quid. So if he becomes the backup keeper, have you ever heard of a 40 million quid backup keeper? I mean, that's kind of insane a little bit, isn't it, really, at the same time? But it is Manchester City. And the second thing is, Donnarumma is a huge presence, isn't he? He's a massive man. He's brilliant in a penalty shootout, as we know, unfortunately, as well. The one thing he's not great with is feet. What are City famous for? Playing it around at the back. What is Ederson arguably the best keeper in the world at? Pinging the ball, isn't he? Passing it, that type of thing. So it would be, as quite a few are suggesting, a real variance from what they've had in goals. And also people go back to, well, Joe Hart, who wasn't obviously as good as Donnarumma, but he was a great or good shot stopper, but they got rid of him because he couldn't play with his feet, didn't they, at the same time? So there's a real kind of it's a very strange move for City, and I do wonder about that one. But It looks like Rodrigo to City, if that's true from Guéhi Balaguer, is dead. Does that mean we're in the mix? Well, his agent was there on Friday, but unless the wage demands come tumbling down, hard to see as well.
I was going to say sometimes lads just go to a game, but someone like Zahavi, it seems unlikely, doesn't it? He's working, right? He's working. So is there any other angle that we haven't thought of there? Is there anyone else in that stable of his that's connected with our club or with the opposition that we were playing? Or is there anything else that could be? Or is it just, do you think it's the most obvious thing that there might be still well, if Isak goes belly up, what do you reckon to taking my lads?
Yeah, I think that's it, because we kind of went digging in it. You were waiting back for a response like, oh, no, sorry, he's the agent of XYZ as well, and he's probably just there to catch up with his player as someone else. But he's semi-retired from the game a little bit, Pinny, isn't he? He's knocking on in the nicest way. He's not wily old fox, and no, all the noises are the expectations. It was around Rodrigo. And also, he was going to speak to Hugo Viana at City as well. So, yeah, that is what we've got.
Yeah, we're very much the poor relations, aren't we, with our 30 million substitute keeper. Feels terrible. Let's go to Palace. After the Community Shield, I think an awful lot of us were thinking, God, I really wish we had Wharton. Much more so than people were thinking, I really wish we had Guéhi. But Guéhi is still very much, and like you highlighted that moment where it seemed to be really awkward, where Guéhi seemed to be, and again, this doesn't seem like what you hear about him and his character.
Yeah.
Is that he's a really good lad and he's quite a humble fella. So whether Glasner was like throwing shapes or being a bit overdramatic himself, whether there is actually a falling out there, which, you know, anyone's entitled to have a bit of a strop if they feel like they've been, you know, hard done to. That's interesting. But there's other targets as well that clubs have lined up from the Palace squad. Eze is one. And there is more bits and bobs going on because we know United are still looking to throw a big ball of money at someone. This Carlos Baleba thing won't go away. And I believe that even United have been linked to Wharton, but the price will be massive.
Wait till we get to the Baleba bit at United. You're going to love this. You know they always throw something in the mix, so just wait for that when it comes. But yeah, I mean, Palace, in a way, could potentially be the busiest, couldn't they? Because obviously we all know about Guéhi and what's that happening and could happen late in the window. Eze as well. I mean, there were various reports that Eze wasn't going to play, wasn't it, on Sunday, against Chelsea because of how close the deal was. But then it came out that no, there is no agreement with Spurs and with Palace, which you could see, because let's be honest, the two people negotiating there are Daniel Levy and Steve Parish. Slippery characters that, like, can you imagine if, like, you threw Edwards into the mix as well? You know, it would just be, the three slippiest negotiators there, the snake oil salesman, you could say. So that comes in. Eze still has told Palace, I want to go to Spurs. So you kind of expect it to happen. And you expect it to happen because Palace have made a couple of inquiries for his replacement already. It's important to say they've spoken to Leicester over Bilal El-Khanous, who's told Leicester he wants to go. Of course he does, because why wouldn't you want to move, just out of Leicester to start with anyway? But also, I think it's Solis. It's pronounced is another attacker at Bruges, and they're looking for around 40 to 50 million euros as well. So Palace are in the market for those replacements. Wharton is important to mention because after the failure of Baleba, which we'll come back to as well, United did sort of make an inquiry around Adam Wharton just to see about his availability. And I mean, come on, Steve Parish is likely to sell Eze and Guéhi, as if he's going to let Wharton go, this summer at the same time as well, and World Cup year. So the suggestions we had is that United were told, oh, you want Adam Wharton? Yeah, you can have him. Sorry, 120 million-ish will get it done, though, which I think Adam Wharton's a brilliant player. We both said we wanted him all summer, would love to do it. But even if Liverpool bid today 120 million on Adam Wharton, we'd probably turn around and go, well, it's not our money. It does seem a little bit high, though, as like Michael Edwards been smoking something a little bit. That would be the kind of sentiment, wouldn't it? So, yeah, Adam Wharton is not going anywhere this summer. But, yeah, as a replacements, Guéhi, Jacque, as we mentioned, they're looking at him. Going to be a busy club, Palace, you fancy?
Yeah, and like you said, you bet on them coming up trumps when it comes to banking the cash. Let's just put it that way. I just was checking my Twitter feed to see if people were able to follow, and I've come across a lad who says, love this duo, the two Ronnies, the new two Ronnies we've been referred to as. Dave, fair play. That's as he says, one for the kids. We've had worse. Yeah, the business, of course, around the league continues. Let's go to Forest, because you mentioned the Tsimikas links there. And I think we were all sort of like nodding our head thinking, it's actually a really good move for Costas. A player I'd love to see stay at the club, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But it looks like he's on his way. Is there anything else going on there? Because I did hear a story about McAtee, but I don't know a whole lot else about what might be happening at Forest.
Yeah, it's funny because they were quite slow in the window. The Gibbs-White thing, didn't it, knocked on with Spurs for so long. And since then, I mean, I can only describe, if anyone can see the photo on the screen, that they've signed madness, because the state of the baggy trousers on Hutchinson and McAtee there are absolutely shocking. I think they've worn the dad's pants to sign an on-day a little bit, but such is fashion. That Forest are going young British, that two of the members of England's under-21 Euro squad are through the door. I can't pronounce the striker they've signed as well from Rennes for about 30 million, so I'm not even going to have a go. So that's in the mix. And also, it's important to say, they did try for Rico Lewis, the City left-back, who had quite a decent opening day. But as Pep came out and said after the game, he's told me he's going to stay, so that's expected. So that's why a lot of the Tsimikas stuff's been cropping up as well, because it looked like Forest were going down the young English, Rico Lewis there as well. But now that's got shut down. There is just a few are saying just keep an eye on whether that Tsimikas link sort of takes off again. But yeah, Forest have done nothing like the business of a few years ago. But the last week or so, 4 through the door in a week isn't bad at all.
It's not, Can I try and share something with you? Because I think it could be an inspiration for what's happening here with our boy there, McAtee. Let me just see if I can get this to just check this out. Check this out. See what you think. What do you think?
Oh,
see?
Do you know what? It was in my subconscious, and all I could think was Peter Reid at the Boo Camp opening. That was all I could think about.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
It. Like these aren't so bad, although that's a rascal outfit. These aren't so bad, but that's remarkable. He's got like 4 suits worth of clothing around his legs there. You've got it. Like, I mean, hats off to the lad. What a decision in life decision that is. Right.
Wow.
Anyway, just thought you'd appreciate that. Let's go back next to Newcastle, because I've been very critical of their business, because it's just so frustrating to see them fail again and again to get the targets that they're aiming at, because of the obvious knock-on effect for us. But there is a sort of the theme of the summer so far, Dave, has been chains, like housing chains, and there does seem to be one. It could be fanciful, wishful thinking on our part, but it starts at Brentford and it goes on from there. There's also a link with a Chelsea lad to come in and an Inter Milan player as well. So will you walk us through the business that Newcastle are still trying to do?
I mean, honest to God, Tara joins, as we say, Brentford. So you're thinking that will be Visser, but no, we're currently at the stage of deleting everything from social media as Johan Visser, a bit like a 15-year-old girl's relationship breakup type of thing, and deleting all the photos and everything like that. Fratesi, an attacking midfielder, Inter Milan is linked as well, a pal of Tonale, so that comes in. But again, nothing solid on this. I mean, they got Jacob Ramsey through the door, haven't they, on top of Malik Toure, I think it's pronounced. There's at least one through the door, although, as is quite clear, Jacob Ramsey didn't really want to go. He's just been forced to because of Villa's PSR issues, as all the players are commenting on social media. I mean, now in the mix is Christopher Nkunku linked, tonight again with them. I mean, Trev, honestly, I think they've missed out now on 9 targets. I mean, by tomorrow or our next transfer show, what other attacker are they going to be linked with? We're going to be doing reports of Idi Amin or Boutros Ghali as an option in the hole or something. Just the amount of attacking options, like literally everyone ever you can think about. And the thing is, and even Nicholas Jackson, that seems to be now suggested he's going to Villa. So they've fumbled that one if they ever wanted him at all as well. I honestly, we could have next transfer show 12 links to attackers with Newcastle. And by the way, do you remember we mentioned Goncalo Ramos at PSG? That got rubbish today as a load of not true. That was just a name thrown out there as well. There could genuinely be 46 attackers linked to Newcastle by the next transfer show. Would we actually have any real faith they're going to land any of them? I think we both know the answer, don't we?
You can just go by the evidence, and the evidence speaks to them being appalling at what they're trying to do. Adam there, very, very smart comment, I have to say, and agree with that entirely. That's kind of what I was talking about when it comes to the hypocrisy in the coverage of all of this Liverpool and Isak stuff. It is remarkable. Yeah, so unsurprisingly, a basket case and no certainty when it comes to Newcastle. But Chelsea, equally basket case, but they get stuff done. And now it turns out that they're looking at someone who I think an awful lot of us would love to see at Liverpool, and that's Hincapie. The Xavi Simons thing is rumbling on. It's not done yet. And there are a couple of other potential exits as well. Talk to us about Chelsea and what they're trying to get done.
Yeah, they want that 11th centre-half because you've got to have cover in all the positions, don't you, as Maresca says. So Hincapie is been linked. But as reported there, Leverkusen are saying no, that we can't lose any more players, because of all that's happened with them during the summer. So that looks a non-starter. Xavi Simons, it's known now on the market. It's telling all the clubs, even the ones he's been linked with, that it's Chelsea only for him, which is funny because a 9-year contract can do that to you. And even today, as it was just reminded as they kind of slipping into articles, that obviously they want rid of Nicholas Jackson, of course, and, happy to do that. And people are saying, why are they still demanding this 80 million quid, Trev? Because as it stands right now, Nicholas Jackson still has 8 years left on his Chelsea deal. So the idea is they obviously need the 60 million for the books and 20 million to pay off Nicholas Jackson, and the rest of his contract when he goes type of thing as well. So 8 years remaining, 2033 Nicholas Jackson's contract runs to, and that's even after a few years at the club. Just to give you an idea about that. They are looking to ship, as we know. They're trying to get rid of Fofana and Dizazi. Wolves were in the mix for them as well. It's funny that I can't think of any other club that is trying to do so much business coming in and so much business coming out, all's while trying to convince everyone in the media and fans across the board that they don't pay these big wages. It just so happens people have contracts until 2033. So, honestly, nothing would surprise you before the end of the window, would it, if Chelsea made a massive bid for a centre-half, another attacker, because they were obviously 0-0. So no doubt they'll be back on the attacking market today. It's just good for us. Sweeney Todd still has the potential to put a little bit of juice in the show with a few weeks remaining.
Yeah, I don't understand why nobody's told all these potential Chelsea players that the 9-year contract won't matter, because has nobody told them about the alien craft that's approaching that will be here within 18 months? I don't understand. Lads, you're not going to get your 9 years. Let's move on to our next story, which is our last story for the Premier League. And this is United. I'm looking forward to this because you've kind of teased us with the Baliba thing. You've told us already about how they're interested in Wharton, but the money that Palace have slapped on it is prohibitive, you would imagine. And can they manage to get rid of that poor bastard who was their attacker last year, who has been gazumped by Sheshko? What's the crack with Onana as well? Because he seems to be out of favour, having been, very much everyone defending him left, right and centre at that club last year. So talk to us about United, the business that remains for them to do. Is it all pie in the sky, or do you actually believe that they are ready to throw around a big old ball of money at the end here?
I think they end up getting someone, but it's not who they're trying for right now. It'll be down the list, and United will probably do a silly move because that's what we're used to. But as it's on screen, this is brilliant. United, as per Ornstein, are not proceeding with Carlos Baleba. Do you remember we said last week, Brighton, as a well-known, they never reveal the price of targets, do they? They just almost enter into negotiations, Bloom and Barber, and do their magic to say, they have a price, we're just not going to tell you it. You're going to make offers and we'll see if we can negotiate or whether we just say no straight away. I mean, United almost made a final offer of 70 million quid is our info for Baleba, and kind of went, take it or leave it, Brighton. And Brighton went, leave it? Like, come on, Carlos Baleba, as we said. You're starting at 100 million in the market, aren't you? Minimum type of thing, the way it's gone and looking at prices. So why United ever thought this would be done is just absolute bobbins. And it looks like it's probably going to be the same for Adam Wharton for the approach they're doing. So they'll end up with a midfielder. What I like, though, Trev, is when United get a bit panicky over midfielders, that's when the likes of Ugarte arrive, isn't it? And those types who don't really suit everything. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, yesterday, Højlund wasn't in the squad. They've made it clear they don't want him. He's trying to deal with AC Milan with a loan and an option. Everyone expects that to happen. I absolutely love Ruben Amorim getting a bit agitated in the press conference yesterday around all the questions and said, oh, so you dropped Onana? Oh, no, I didn't drop him. I just had two others ahead of him. Right. So that means, remember this, Arne Slot has never dropped Harvey Elliott. He just has 6 midfielders ahead of him currently. Remember that. That's, the way it works for phrasing. And he was getting a bit irate about it all. But, I mean, they tried to do the loan deal with Emi Martinez, didn't they, at Villa, who's still, there. That's a question mark. And, even tried for a free with him at one point. United are already rolling the dice a little bit on PSR for, his R info, and they still want to do business. But what their budget is and what they're trying to go for is a little bit different. And I mean, there is links to, I think it's pronounced Højlund or something like that, a defensive midfielder at Sporting, someone, of course, that Amorim knows well. So something like that would probably get done. But other than that, it is just a bit odd, isn't it? It's not bad enough that they've got to get the moody Norwich scarves out and start protesting or anything like that. But yeah, nothing would surprise me still with United at this stage of the window.
Yeah, there does seem to be a few disgruntled lads hanging around that haven't gotten their moves away yet either. So it'll be interesting to see what that does to morale there as well. Just before we go to the last section, and we'll fly through that because we are going long here. I'm very aware of it, but we can't really skip past without making mention of it. Seems to have gone quite quiet, doesn't it, on the Leipzig interest in Harvey Elliott, or am I mistaken?
No, it's still there. I think the thing around Harvey Elliott is you talked about house chains. It's almost a merry-go-round, a chain that he's involved with, it seems, to get it all done. And 2 clubs that you mentioned there and one we've talked about earlier. So people will say, Or why have you got a picture of that 7'9" Stuttgart Wolfgang striker, whatever he's called, on the screen? Because that was who Bayern were expected to get, wasn't it? But that move seems to have fallen through. Christopher and Nkunku was supposed to be going to Bayern, wasn't he? So that would free up Xavi Simons, and give, because Chelsea would have the money and all those types of things. And eventually that merry-go-round would end up in Harvey Elliott at Red Bull Leipzig. But the merry-go-round might just have stopped at the moment with all those moves. I mean, there's still the expectation Harvey Elliott departs before the end of the window. And actually, it was interesting. We mentioned Spurs, didn't we, the other week, to keep an eye on. If Eze doesn't go through, and especially now the Savinho City move seems to have fallen through, it is one we've been told just keep an eye on. So full expectation still that Harvey Elliott does depart. We just got to complete the links in this chain, haven't we, to get it done?
Story of the freaking summer, it seems to be. Two stories to finish was to begin with Roma, who are having a look at a couple of Premier League players.
Yeah, Roma, this one's funny, isn't it? Jadon Sancho currently not accepted AS Roma proposal and not even in talks with Besiktas now. Do you remember the Jadon Sancho who Chelsea paid £5 million not to sign him at the start of the summer to United as a penalty? And there's been apparently loads and loads of inquiries for Jadon Sancho to try and get that done. But the guy's just not budging on his wages because United have put him on that massive deal, hasn't he? That stupid deal. So the kid's saying, now what it paid up, in that type of regard. So it just rumbles and rumbles all the time. And I mean, there's talks that he had Saudi offers, didn't want those and all this. For me, it feels like it's already got that back on loan to Borussia Dortmund style deal where United pay 95% of his wages and Dortmund contribute a walnut whip weekly type of thing to the deal. It does just feel like it's going to be one of them things again. As well, Leon Bailey, the Villa winger, he's set to go to Roma on loan. So there's a loan fee with the option to make it permanent to help Villa's PSR as well. So, yeah, Roma look like they're pretty much going to get one winger. Where Jadon Sancho ends up, anyone's guess right now.
Yeah, it's so messy. Our last story then is, of course, we usually end up with the Saudis and what they're up to. And some weird pictures going around Twitter today. See a picture of Darwin hanging out with Cancelo. Saw a picture of Diaz holding up the trophy with Harry Kane. All sorts of weird pictures. Weird picture of Pep and Kolo Toure as well. All these sort of bizarre associations happening around the place. But the Saudis have the money to make these pictures just appear. And Kingsley Coman, just one of those stories that won't seem to go away. Zakaria is another one that's got a few bits and pieces going on here with the Saudis. Are there any other lads, notable players who are being linked with a late move to the Saudi league?
Yeah, I mean, Coleman, as we said, the wages he's getting from them to get this done is just absolutely insane. Zakaria has turned down 2 offers as well so far, and is the expectation that they'll just keep coming back, he doesn't want to stay at Monaco, he just wants them to meet the price, so he'll get an absolute bucket full of cash driven to his house as well. It's just important to say with the Saudis, we've said all summer, it's not the paradigm summer it was of the previous year, but this is crucial. The Saudis have said to the Premier League clubs, listen, if you're getting towards the end of the window and you're trying to ship out these players, give us a bell. We've got an actual truckload of cash waiting. Again, it's just, will the players accept it? Because let's not mince words at all. As you mentioned Darwin there, Darwin didn't want Saudi and Al Hilal to start with, didn't we? We knew all about the Atletico desires, the Napoli situation, AC Milan being in the mix, and him wanting that European move. It just never came off. So it ended up being Saudi or no one, and off to Al Hilal he's gone. So it will be interesting to see, is there any other Premier League players end up in that situation. And if they are prepared to go, you might see a few late moves to the Saudi League.
Yeah, I'd say you can almost bank on that as clubs are desperate to sort out their finances, maybe cash in an asset here or there, especially one who may be on the fringes. I just find myself very worried for Harvey Elliott. There's no mention of Harvey to Saudi at all. I don't think that's going to be a thing. But you'd like to see that guy get sorted sooner rather than later. We could go on, but we have gone to the 1 hour and 5 minute mark, and we will wrap it up at this stage, Dave. Absolutely packed show. Thank you for putting together all of that information for us, for our listeners and our viewers. Thanks to all of you guys who have stuck through and whatever issues YouTube were having, soldiered on. Thousands of you watching live, which is really heartening. Dave and I appreciate that. Don't be under any doubts about that. It is appreciated. But for now, for this one, until a couple of days' time.
Yeah.
It will be, Dave. It's going